Today we're speaking to our U.S. Attorney Peter Strasser, and we're going to be talking about different things that their office is able to do and to assist crime victims. We also want to inform you about different scams that are happening now that the COVID funds are reaching individuals.
Well, thank you, Darlene. It's a pleasure to be here. And as you mentioned, this is National Crime Victims' Rights Week. And so that's why I'm glad to be talking with you today about that. Normally, we do a lot of events which we attend, not just us on the federal level, but on the state level, and we join together in recognition of all those events. But obviously this week, in this year, because of the coronavirus shutdown, we can't. So I just like to talk about it a little bit. One thing that I would like for everyone to know that as far as the federal level is concerned, we are actually governed by an actual law called the Justice for All Act, which was enacted in 2004. And it's codified in Title 18 of the United States Code, which is where all the criminal laws are. And particularly if anybody wants to look it up, it's section 3771. And it basically enumerates a list of rights for crime victims. And those victims, those rights include things that you might think are actually very obvious, but they really need to be enforced. And number one is just the right to be reasonably protected from the accused. And that's enforced by the courts. If a accused is put out on bail or put out on bond, then it is a condition of the bond that they have zero interaction with the accused. Secondly, they have the right to reasonable, accurate, and timely notice of any proceedings in this matter, not just on the court level, but anything that we do. The most important example, I think, would be a plea bargain itself. And we never, ever enter into any plea bargain until we've taken the views of the victim into account. Doesn't mean that the victim governs, but we always take their views into account, and we don't like to enter into any plea bargain unless the victim actually has concurred in that. And the guidelines which we have in doing any plea bargains is to always charge and have a victim plead guilty to, not a victim, but of course, have the accused plead guilty to the most readily provable crime, most serious crime. And by that way, we keep the victim into account, because at the end of the day, our job really is onefold, and that is to ensure justice for the victim. That's why we are here, and that's what this is all about. And in fact, I consider it so important that I have a victim witness unit of 4 individuals whose job is to deal with victims, to deal with witnesses, which, as you might imagine, being a witness to a violent crime can be a very dangerous, frightening experience to have to go through. So we have 4 people who deal with nothing but that, and I put so much importance on it that my secretary, and I don't need a full-time secretary, maybe somebody who devotes 20% of their time. I have somebody from the victim witness unit to be my secretary, and that way I can keep tabs on what is going on with victims and with witnesses.
So talk a little bit about the type of resources that y'all are able to offer during that time.
The resources basically is to advise them and listen to their concerns throughout the entire process. So the victim always knows every step of the process what is going on within our office and within the court system too. There are grants which are given to different groups which shelter victims and stuff like that in case they need to leave their own homes. The Department of Justice has those grants, and we implement the funding of those. But basically, the resources is the work that is done by the 4 individuals in our unit.
We'd like to talk about a second topic, because I know there's a topic that you're really trying to educate individuals on. Because of the stimulus money that's coming in, people are just taking advantage of, particularly the elderly. But talk about the scams that y'all are seeing.
Yes, the elderly, of course, is the one that concerns me the most. If for no other reason, I have a personal interest in this because my mother's 89 years old, and I basically have instructed her to stay off the telephone because it is incredible. A crisis is a test of character, and unfortunately, those without character are coming out of the woodwork, and they believe that morality is something they don't have to worry about. So yes, so what we've seen is phone calls to elderly people, emails to elderly people, text messages to elderly people, basically along the line telling them that they are representatives of a hospital, or that they have they are representatives of an insurance company, or anything having to do in any shape, manner, form with the medical industry, that they've got just the cure for them, so they'll never get this disease. And all they need do is, it's all free. All they need do is provide them with certain information, and they will get the free kits, the free vaccines, you name it. And of course, the information which they want is Social Security numbers, Medicare numbers, most importantly for them is their Medicare numbers, bank account information, and so forth. Or even worse, if it's done by text message or by email, to click into this link, and then everything is there for you. And of course, once you've clicked into the link, they're into your system. And then they can go in and use keystroke methods and other malware methods to pull out the information that they need. So that's why most of us, I think, are pretty much aware not to click on anything or talk to strangers, but the elderly sometimes are not. And that is why it's very important that somebody look out for them to make sure that that doesn't happen.
No, it's incredibly important. And, you know, I, like you, I have a 93-year-old father, so absolutely that the greatest generation there, and they're very trusting, but regretfully, we're seeing more and more bank scams and things, tips coming to us, for people concerned about what they're seeing on the internet. So again, the more you're doing out there with your messaging, it's definitely hitting home and appreciated.
Well, thank you. But you know, you mentioned the word trusting, and in one sense, that's part of the problem. We as human beings are very social animals, and we are just ingrained from birth on to trust people. And so and this is why we have criminals. They take advantage of that trust. And we basically have to steel ourselves that the stranger who we think we are talking to is, and who we think we're talking to is somebody we can trust, is not necessarily so.
Absolutely not. And they will go to any length they can. And you are right in saying that they will ask it, paint a beautiful picture to be able to give whatever information they can, and then obviously defraud our people and our elderly people particularly.
Exactly.
So hopefully we will share your message on Facebook and throughout social media. And you know, I would love to talk to you again. And we appreciate your time. I hope you have a blessed day today.
Not at all. It's always a pleasure to be with you.